dies in 1958 on this day. Beowulf, that's right, Beowulf, the Burn Wolf, also passes away. This is also the feast of the Canadian martyrs, which is crazy to think about, that there are martyrs for Canada, witnesses of Christ's return. This is a very Jesuit concept, but seems kind of Latter-day Saint to me, if you don't mind. Heinz Reichenbach was born today in 1891 in the Habsburg German Empire. So you might be familiar, he died in Los Angeles and kind of crossed the boundaries of Neuropa here. Part of the Berlin Circle with Gustav and Hempel. I mean, we'll look at the Berlin Circle at some point. But even around the world, Tran Duc Tao, which was a French Vietnamese philosopher, said some important things, was trying to unite phenomenology with Marxist philosophy. I feel like he comes up in my circles more than less, and probably should be mentioned more. Same day as the birth of John Chapman Appleseed. Can you believe it? Johnny Appleseed, born the same day that Randy Newman died. What does it mean? But not only that, the day that even Ivan Pavlov was born. Ivan Pavlov, who went on to torture dogs to see if he could get them to whistle or follow his whistle. I mean, right? And also, let's not forget, the Sultan of the Caliph, Al-Mu'izz-li-Din Allah, who, in 973, reunited the Western Caliphate, which it made it possible for Cordoba to expand into Spain. So, not bad, from Egypt into Spain. Also, Anne of Bavaria, born today. She was a member of the House of Wittelsbach, and she married Charles IV, completely uniting the Holy Roman Empire, which made Germany part of the Holy Roman Empire. Wolfgang Count Palatine of Zweibrücken, which I don't really know much about, but it just seemed like somebody we needed to talk about because he was born today as well. So, I'll probably keep this page open for my own personal interest. Wenzel Müller, an amazing composer, Austrian, you love him, makes some good music. But what really blew my mind, right? And we all said, oh, well, there never was there ever a cat so clever as magical Mr. Mistopheles, is based on a book, actually memoirs, by T.S. Eliot, written in an insane asylum, because the dude was completely insane. But T.S. Eliot wrote some pretty important poetry, right? And some important quotes, like to say, we shouldn't confuse information with knowledge, is one of his favorite lines. And that everybody gets the experience, few get the lesson. I like him. He's born today, September 26, 1888, in St. Louis, Missouri. Who saw that coming? So I find that interesting that all of these things are tied together by the most incredible coincidence that today is the birth of our dear Lord Raphael. Good to see you, buddy.
And you, Malish. How are you?
Good to see you, bro. All right. Well, now that I did that, do you want to listen to the intro for a second?
Let's go.
All right.
This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hello. Welcome to the Exators. Tune in for another exciting episode of wonder, imagination, and discovery.
Recent Tartarians.
Она образует всеобщие закономерности, определяющие законы классической физики для нашего
Sometimes I
мира.
look at the moon and just think, the spin's beautiful.
Baby, when I met you, there was peace unknown.
Что касается энергии наномер, то она превышает ядерную в немыслимое число раз. 10 в 74 степени.
That's it. That's it. That's it. With your arms now. That's it. That's it.
Thank you for watching Exators. Keep listening. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, please follow and subscribe and share and support. It really helps. Coming up next, Exatos.
By the way, that's gone. If you didn't record that, that's gone forever. It's gone.
Alles Gute zum Geburtstag.
Danke sehr. And to everyone else. But of course, this is all only valid within the modern Gregorian calendar, which at least some watchers will gladly take issue with, me included.
Yeah, that's
But
fair.
in any case, thank you so much. Yeah,
Only for Pavlov, really. Like, I think the rest of it, you're like, yeah, Beowulf, I could see that. Randy Newman, he's handsome. Pavlov, you're like, no.
It's the parallel incarnations, right?
Yeah, and that's only because he's in Russia, so the calendar probably is off. See, so you're right. So you're cool. That's all right. So how you been though? What's up? Happy birthday.
Right. Thank you. I'm fine, and yeah, excited for the show. We're mixing it a little bit up in terms of weekdays, but release early, release often, or released whenever you are able to, and this is what we're doing. So
It's
welcome,
better.
everyone.
It's better this way, but trust us all. In the future, there'll be only more Neuropas throughout the weeks. I think that's the way it's going to happen. Trust us on that one. The Legend of Chronology, The Hate of Fate. You were showing me this game earlier. I don't think you were planning on talking about it, but it looks so cool. And I feel like the kinds of people who watch the show might actually play this game. It's one of those point-and-click games where you go on an adventure, and there's a white rabbit in a hat. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I maybe brought this up once before. I just reminded me because you were showing this. What kind of music were you showing me? Maybe pull that up briefly because it was so insane. People will want to see it.
So if you ever, talk to people from their own culture, when I talk to people from another place, I tend to remind them of things that they try better to forget, I think. Like Canada, I'll be like, Degrassi, greatest show ever. Klaus Nomi is such an interesting Germanic figure. In 1980s, late 70s, early 80s, he came to the United States right at the end of the post-punk, even I would almost say during punk, mid-punk, proto-punk to post-punk, and was part of what became the New Wave movement, but even beyond the New Wave movement, you could almost call it No Wave, right? Because Klaus Nomi was Discordian, and the music was chaotic to an extent, while still being classically trained and able to sing in a falsetto opera. So he would sing in a high-pitched voice that sounded much like a prima donna woman singing in an opera, yet he was a man, and he would also play with synthesizers because synthesizers were the thing at the time. And the show started out so cheap, right? Because he's just a gay guy in a nightclub. So you'd have this beat machine behind him, and then other shows would be going on to do like an improv night, and there'd be a comedian on cocaine, and then there'd be like a punk band of some girls, and then there'd all of a sudden be Klaus Nomi, and he'd come out in this kind of robotic suit, which was so didn't exist yet. So it was so ahead of the time that it became the time. It was New York City, right? Everyone saw this. It became the time. It became the symbol of the time in a lot of ways. And Klaus Nomi was so cool, and he got ripped off by so many people, and his music even ended up on MTV, where he didn't get any money from it, and then he died of AIDS. Super sad. But yeah, Klaus Nomi's based. Super based. And most people, I think, there's like two kinds of people maybe in the world, right? Like cultural Marxists and not kind of a thing. There are people that love Klaus Nomi and understand Klaus Nomi, and I think it's like an artistic thing, right? Like where you get it. You're like, Klaus Nomi's a genius, Wittgenstein. And then there's people that don't get Klaus Nomi, and they're just not ready. That's really all it is. It's just a kind of soft ignorance that, maybe it can be probably fixed, but you never know.
Well, some people are ahead of their time, and too many artists apparently only receive recognition after they're dead, or decades later.
That was a major problem with Klaus, was because people were ripping him off while he was alive, and so it was like, hey, just pay me for the music I was working on, and they didn't want to do that. And
I mean, we can pretty much assume 90% of currently highly popular, not even gonna only say music, any media is most likely ripped off from someone and then popularized by someone else. I'm only reminding you of what Dr. Shiva talked to us about in terms of how they like to proceed. And then you've been talking about, what's her name? Sarah something. And then there's also Thomas Althaus, who are both to some extent claiming to be the originators of the Matrix series,
Oh,
which of
right.
course is
Sophia
incredibly
Stewart.
funny. Sophia Stewart and Thomas Althaus. And if there's any credence to what they say, isn't it hilarious that even this movie, which is supposed to be the most fourth wall breaking revelatory movie, itself may have been obfuscated, changed, and ripped off from not the then brothers, now sisters, you know?
Right.
So much for cultural Marxism or whatever you were saying.
But there's, well, you know, actually, then I would say with cultural Marxism, there's a difference between actual Marxism. So you could think of the Decembrist coup and the suppression of the true Marxist revolutions, because there were a lot of times where it made sense that some people would just quit their job and strike, and the Bolsheviks shut them down. They found out where in Russia people were trying to protest, and they shut it down because they wanted a universal protest that they were in charge of, right?
The most superficial story I'd heard, I believe, even in school, when, you know, I couldn't really relate to the detailed ideologies or anything, but the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks, right? And kind of it was clear, like
shut down those Mensheviks. We were talking, Gianni and I were talking the other day.
And it's also funny because Menshevik in German is Mensch, which is human. Yeah, this is an immediate association you have, and the other Bolshevik, whatever that could mean. But just pretty clear that one side appeared to be more fascistic or whatever, and just take over. And yeah, always the same thing. Whatever organic, real need there may be, you astroturf it to the max, and then you take control of it to steer it along the lines you want. Yeah.
And it's kind of a like not exactly the same thing, but there's a movie about a German pop star who's a traumatized homosexual who has to escape and end up in the East Coast. And I think you could really say, like, there's a lot of connections between Hedwig and the Angry Inch and the real life story of Klaus Nomi. Obviously, Klaus Nomi wasn't a sex change victim of a botched all the issues that happened in Hedwig don't necessarily happen in the life of Klaus Nomi. But the idea of a Germanic pop star who's been traumatized, comes to the West, is exploited, has their music stolen, it's used by, the most ridiculous, absurd, non-sympathetic character, in this case a Christian rock singer, right? And it's an entire musical about it. I would highly recommend Klaus Nomi, but even more, I would highly recommend watching Hedwig and the Angry Inch, especially if you're like a Christian right conservative. You especially, probably. But I'll see you. Let me pull up a page that was created by our birthday boy here. So this was supposed to happen on the 25th, but as you know, that is a bloodletting and a cult day, so we were busy, but global scaling was the title of today's episode, even though new chronology comes up as well. But let's start with some global scaling. What do you think about that? Look at this guy. Look at this super full of life and cheerful man. Sorry.
Yeah, I had mentioned him a few times before and also on last show, and then I just did another lookup. I haven't watched these properly yet, but this is only like an introductory video, let's say only about an hour. Right, Kozyrev, yeah.
What's he talking about? What is global scaling? What's it?
Well, so I recently spoke to a friend about this again, and it appears that this may even harken back to Maxwell. I'm really not a physicist or expert in these, neither the history nor the physics of it.
He looks like he's about to be shot for revealing some secret truth. He's like really worried.
I'll remind you of what happened to him after this. Okay. But basically, from what I understand, and this may, if I understand correctly, even harken back to Maxwell or something like this. But basically, there are three types of waves. There is transversal waves, longitudinal waves, and scalar waves. And it appears, whereas maybe even the first two kinds actually travel through space as we would perceive it, like with electromagnetics or something, in terms of having to travel through a wall or through a body and so on, and therefore encountering resistance. It appears the scalar waves, he also sometimes calls them, I want to say for lack of a better term, gravitational waves. They appear to be non-local. And one of the first applications or real-world applications he demonstrated, you can also find this online. We can look it up again. I'm sending you the link. I had it in a previous show, but just so you can see this guy and actually on a, let's say, official documentary. Oh, of course, you have to be very exact with entering this, because otherwise it won't show up. Gravitationstelefon. All right. Well, it'll come up in a second.
Why do people make links so complicated? It confuses me. Like, if you make a link, why are you putting, spaces in your titles and capital letters and just, it's like, people, come on, when you make a link, just, it could be so easy. I mean, your license plate, right? Like, what? I just don't understand the lack of syntax. It's like a lack of etiquette. I'm sorry.
Pretty much. Okay, it's not coming up right now, but it's in one of the previous logs. But if you just look up for Hartmut Müller, Gravitationstelefon or GCOM.
Just look up for Hartmut blah, 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 for Hartmut Müller. What?
No. Just show the image again. We already had it. We don't need any other links. I just wanted to refer back to it because there you can basically see him. Yeah. This is good. This is good. Yeah. Because basically here, there is one demonstration at a university where he's basically having a phone call between Germany and Russia, between two universities, and that was the real world application to basically have. Yes, there we go. Oh, thank you. First one.
Okay. All right. Telephone.
Yes.
And then this is him talking about.
So the whole point here being is to be able to make phone calls without any quote unquote electrosmog or any excess radiation. And there he's basically, you can see him here demonstrating this at a German university in 2001 and connecting to, I believe, even a Russian university.
Is this guy still alive? Because he totally looks like they're going to kill him. Like he looks like he's aware that they don't like him alive anymore because he's giving people useful information. Am I missing something here?
No, so I'll tell you the story. So what's curious, number one, of course, is he's cooperating with the Russians. And the Russians, sometimes they say that this is kind of space type research. You can believe that or not, but in any case, the Russians seem to have like a kind of an advantage or more understanding about the scalar wave technology, both for medical applications. Welcome. And also for telecommunication or other type, which can all function through scalar waves. And basically what happened after these demonstrations, you can pull up the next link because there's a whole playlist of like 10 hours or something where he's talking about global scaling in Falkensee, which is, I guess, in Germany or in Austria in 2008. I'll take my time to watch all of this. And even here you can see what a joke is this. This channel has like 300 subscribers. And this very relevant Hartmut Müller playlist has like 300 views on average on each of these videos. And I can say quite confidently by now that at least out of these three wave types, transversal, longitudinal, and scalar is the one that is the most suppressed in mainstream discourse, is the most relegated to be like spooky woo-woo whatever, whilst you do have these very real-world applications. And even last time we brought up the teleportation patent by St. John St. Clair or whatever he's called, this Google Patents pseudonym as it appears, and even he's talking about scalar waves. So that's a recurring theme. And here I basically just wanted to point out that I finally found a more expansive, leave this one on, a more expansive playlist. So one of the core ideas here, which I can recount from the little bit that I watched about it many years ago, is that this is based on proton resonance wavelength, as it says here. And supposedly, apparently, he has calculated some kind of a resonant wavelength of protons, whatever, even again, proton and atomic models may be exactly. Let's leave that aside for now. But he claims to have found a real-world practical application, whereas then applying these formulas and this set of, I want to say, technology or research, you should actually be able to, for example, design chiplets for computers without needing to optimize them and, let's say, have reruns on the designs. But basically, by using this to determine the position of resistances and other things, he claims that it is basically possible to quote-unquote create perfect chipsets or other types of designs that would use, I guess, electrical current or something from the get-go. So without needing to revise the design. Oh, and thank you, Post, for sharing is caring.
Yeah, we love you, Post. You're awesome. Thanks for being a member and sharing membership. Anybody else who became a member because of Post, thank you too. But yeah, it's crazy to think about that this is all... Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Now, supposedly at least one. There was one application I'd read about with some kind of a mill. I forgot the exact thing of what it was milling or what it was for, but that by supposedly applying again this set of optimizations or formulas, they were able to optimize their design by several tenths of percents or something, like
Ooh,
10,
as
20, 30%.
a birthday present. Think about that.
Oh, thank you so much. That's perfect. Anyway, so
that was a cool spectrum thing here looking at, by the way, just how wide, I mean, again, showing how wide the blue spectrum is and everything. Like, this is interesting that he's actually trying to navigate this. And a lot of the time, this is what we're looking at the FCC is dividing up radio. So he's on the same path to find out. I don't know. Interesting.
You're going to say he's on the same wavelength?
I was about to. I had to stop myself, but I don't know why. Just go with it.
And probably only I can hear it, but again, I have the slightest feedback from your line. Maybe I'm traveling through your
let me
cord
see
of your headphones.
I'll see what I can do.
Maybe just tune it by 10%. So yes, so he's done these presentations. I will actually take sometime within this year, I hope, and rewatch all of that. This may be about 12 hours, but I don't know anybody else who is publicly talking about this. I'm not even sure in this presentation which language he's speaking, but I would suggest that this is relevant enough to take the time and look at it. Also, there's a few shorter presentations you can easily find by just researching global scaling or Hartmut Müller, which may be more of an introductory start. But to anyone who go into this deeper, I really recommend it. And also here, I want to give a shout out to this particular channel, which unfortunately now is not continuing because the individual running it has left this plane of existence. It's been collaborating also with someone else I'm collaborating with, and I just realized I came into contact with them recently again, and then I realized, already over 10 years ago, apparently the same individual was uploading this type of information, which really is, it's so important, and I think it's really underrepresented. And even these videos you saw, maybe 12K views, it should have 100 times that in terms of the relevance of the information and the foundation it may give for different types of technologies. We have these multi-wave oscillators and all of that, and they also all appear to harken back to this application. And I mean, there can be different arguments, but I would not be against having a communicator-style telephone that doesn't have any excess radiation and I can communicate to anybody anywhere. And again, I'll say, at the same time, I'm suspecting that for energy, health, and communication, most likely there will be at least some variant of special access projects that actually very much use these technologies. Because if you imagine your military, it would be completely insane to forego this type of tech, but you'd rather just suppress it for the masses and keep it for yourself. And since you asked, to my understanding, the individual may still be alive. However, he got chased off to Brazil and then was imprisoned for several years. That's what I heard from somebody who was directly collaborating with him as well. Yes.
Guten Abend from España. Buenos noches. Actually, is it night? It is night, yeah. I have to think about the time in Spain. It's the same because it's longitude. Stefan says Kamala is going to take U.S. to war to avoid Civil War #2. Rafa, is Europe ready for war now? Should the U.S. delay World War III until 2028 by electing Trump in 2024? Should Trump be kept in reserve to end World War III in 2028? Really quickly, I just want to say I'm assembling a team. And so the idea that there aren't, a couple rooms of people waiting for Trump not to win is just absurd, right? You just wait until he's out, and then you can pardon everybody who did all the good, important services to make it possible to sustain liberty and freedom in America.
So I want to keep this question on so I can actually understand or properly respond. So what I recently had heard, and I'm not watching it anymore, for many years I was fan of a channel called Bashar, channeled by Deralanka. And then I had mentioned before, from 2020, he started kind of veering off his 30 plus years recommendations on health and started kind of entertaining people's fantasies about masks and medical interventions, which was at the very least a complete break of character and kind of fear-based response from my understanding. So anyhow, there was a recent transmission, I just saw it online, where apparently this channel was asked, and take it with a kilogram of salt or whatever, but I think it's kind of fun. He was asked and was said, okay, so what should happen? Who will gonna be elected? What's gonna happen then? And the channel was kind of like, yeah, of course, usually not commenting on the politics, but all right, we comment. And then what they said is something along the lines of, if the male wins, there will be World War III, basically, which is kind of funny because it may be the reverse of what you're proposing here. So
yeah, I feel like to be fair, that for the next generation, there's no reason for a multipolar war yet. I know people act like that's what's happening, but what you're seeing isn't a multipolar war. You're just seeing a landfill. There's a landfill in Ukraine where they're trying to dissuade states.
Oh, by the way, did anybody ever bring up that Ukraine is traditionally called, I think your camera's stuck, now you're back, that Ukraine is traditionally called, in some explanations at least, borderlands, right?
Right, yeah.
And there has been this Borderlands series going on for many years, which is, complete whack. And I was like, I wonder, how much egregore energy is infused with all of that.
But also, it's it's become Borderlands because they realized that they could. At one point it was centric, it was capital and centric. So to turn the capital into Borderlands is, to salt the earth in a lot of ways too. But I just mean, like, Ukraine is, as interesting as Ukraine is, as highly civilized as Ukrainian people are, the war itself, the way we're looking at it, is not the war. We've had World War III already, the silent war, and so what we're headed into is maybe a more physical conflict, but this is not that. This is the exhaustion of resources to make sure that it's difficult for any state to be, or all states to be engaged in a serious all-out war, which might, and I think a lot of people say, is inevitable, because most states are intentionally headed towards war. It's a practical, historical way to deal with excess populations, to reclaim order, to reclaim order, essentially. If you have a disestablished and a disfranchised populace, to put them into wartime both incentivizes better survival, but also makes it easier to antagonize them into becoming soldiers, which is a system of discipline. So you have a disciplined populace. You get the United States before and after World War II, right? Before World War II, cocaine addicted, boobs in the face, silent movies. After World War II, it's like beating your kids. America became the Korean War. It was completely insane, and it's all through this military discipline ship that emerges. But I don't think that, like, what we're seeing is the war. And so when women and men, like, this whole idea of Trump versus Kamala being masculine or feminine energy, that's not real either, because Trump has plenty of feminine energy.
Right? Wait. Now I'm getting to another point.
Oh, don't Michelle Obama me here.
No, this is hilarious, because if this was given forward correctly, then literally what the channel said, he was referring to the male and the female. So it may, of course, people understood it in the obvious superficial way, but just now thinking,
yeah,
oh boy.
Reiki,
but we'll leave that open.
No, the Reiki and Jungian, I think that's the way to look at it, because also, I don't know, elaborate on your perspective on what you're saying, because maybe I'm missing what you're saying. Are you talking about the sexual receptivity, the spiritual sexual receptivity of the state? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, spiritual...
I'm excited, Raph. Go ahead.
Or I'm talking about whatever biologically we cannot exactly, pin down in terms.
So we are talking about Michelle Obama. Okay.
Well, right. Also potentially, but I just thinking this is so hilarious that it could even be switched around, because you never know with these people. But
True.
Anyways.
I just think that Kamala has a lot of masculine energy around her as well.
Well, I mean, that's obvious if you just look at her. I mean, but she seems like an whatever. Anyways.
I was talking about the cabinet. I was being completely...
But they managed to turn it around really great. It's like they can tell people anything. She was the most hated individual 6 months ago. Now everyone loves her.
I'm actually really impressed with her new campaign minister, who's doing her posts and everything like that. Because in the last week, let's all be honest, Kamala Harris posts have become better, right? Ever since the debate, her posts have been... I mean, I'm not saying that they're true. I'm just saying they're really good posts. They say, I'm going to lower taxes. the middle class makes America strong. These are like short, perfect
Yeah, that's
sound
great.
bites, far superior
Give
to
me
her
a Twitter
former.
account with high reach and supposed political authority. I'll also make up some nice sentences.
She's not doing that. I'm saying her propaganda minister
Of
is.
course,
But the point is,
of course.
it's way
Yeah, yeah.
better than it was last week. You have to admit, she actually whoever she's hired now sounds like a Sorosian neoliberal with a decent education, both in the profundity of intellectual politics, but also in the refined simplicity of soundbite and human speech. Because these things have gotten to the point where you could be a asthmatic and still repeat these few words, right? It's a perfect short little. It's really the phraseology's gotten to a apex point, and that's not what we expected from Kamala, because we just assumed she'd keep laughing and sounding like she was hiding a joint from her grandparents or a cop. That's basically her whole character, you know? And now all of a sudden it's like the middle. I mean, because she's been called out for being a Marxist, so they're like, all right, well, do it then. Because if you call somebody a Marxist, what you actually just said is that they're not stupid. They might be crazy, right? Like a lot of people think Marxists are crazy if they don't agree with them. But it implies all of a sudden that she's not just some vapid airhead, but she's actually completely maybe she's miseducated, but she's clearly very well educated and has an idea and an agenda. And that's all of a sudden, so for so many Americans who are thinking, oh, this is just some harmless lady on Saturday Night Live, I think that they're like, wait, secretly she does have an agenda and we can trust her. Right? I think that it might have backfired in the weirdest way.
Shouldn't the answer rather be, oh, actually, she does have an agenda? That's why we definitely should not trust her. But
only people like you and me. I'm talking about, people that think you gotta make gun laws and stuff. Moms, Midwest moms, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. So, anyways, I actually want to answer the question. So,
no. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're trying to divert. So, take US. Yeah, and you're putting it away. To avoid civil war. So my first question would be, who in the US would actually be fighting whom? Because from the little bit superficially that I understand, if there would be two sides, there is maximum one side that in any way, shape or form would be combat ready. Aside maybe, of course, from some hackers in some Google server room or something. Yeah, so maybe maybe it's gonna be automatons versus militias. Yeah, I'm not sure. Of course, I do not hope for any of this. And and this whole thing, I also, maybe I'm just super naive, but I also don't see like a major scale hot war or anything going on. I see more like of what you mentioned in terms of wasting resources, having some good stage sets in different locations. Of course, again, real people getting hurt. But yeah, it's always difficult to discern between what's a media operation and what's real. And the real problem is, where is all the violence in all the places and all the real problems that is never even put on TV that happens every day? That's of course the other big unknown in the whole calculation.
I was thinking about that a lot recently, that we have less school shootings, less violence than we've ever had before, but it's so better marketed, because now it used to be you have like a dozen school shootings, and we have like horrible things in the world. It's 9 billion, 8 billion people or whatever, supposedly all over. There's going to be 63 sexual assaults a second. Like there's horrible things that are going on in the world. But at the same time, there's also better propaganda than ever before. Like all of a sudden, anywhere in the world, we can hear about it if there's a problem. And if it's timed right, then by the time you get done emotionally, because you can emotionally process something forever. Like, you can take months to worry about September 11th, 2 seconds on TV, boom, just like everyone's worrying about it forever. The same thing with the school shooting, the same thing with these violent moments, and people are like, oh my God, 3 people, 11 people. But like,
because
really,
the real effect I need is the emotional turmoil, at least for the Western population. Maybe,
and so you can imagine, like, if this happens, let's say, kids shoot each other in the inner city in a gangster scenario, that might not make the news. It's going on, but that's not as big of a deal to people. Like if someone gets robbed in a poor neighborhood or something like that, you don't hear the news about it. It's only because you have the dynamic. If you have, oh my God, this super rich neighborhood with all these Christians and these watch things. No one saw it coming. Then they got Christmas
All
robbed.
these poor prosperity gospel preachers, they got robbed.
Oh man,
what a
yeah,
tragedy.
Okay. The televangelists, yeah, that's the kind of thing that makes the news. Whereas it's like every single year, families are getting robbed, their cars are getting broken into outside of supermarkets with all of their Christmas presents and it's stolen, right?
Their
That's
loans get withdrawn without notice and they close their businesses,
Yeah. So, I mean, I find that interesting that we really are living probably in the most peaceful time ever. And even just the idea of the war is an extrapolation of that. You scale it. You're like, okay, well, everyone knows something, especially you figure out a place like Hungary or the Ukraine where there's been a mass exodus of people. Like there's Ukrainian Jews in every country in the world. I mean, to the extent that the Ukrainian war is affecting pretty much everybody in the world on some level. And if it's not, then you're being affected by your state interacting with it. So it's perfect because then all of a sudden you don't have to have a world war. You can just have the war for the world. This is a single battle that's happening like a soccer game. And it seems like they've really got it to that point.
Well, in terms of real suffering and balance in that sense, I can only hope, quote unquote, that's the
I think
case.
that there's still real suffering and violence too. That's the other thing. I'm not saying that crisis actors need to fake everything. Granted, Nick Ocado reminds me of a Sandy Hook kid. That's not my point. I'm just saying that in the world, there's a lot of opportunity to record the suffering and trauma in a way that is maximizing its propaganda effect. And so at this point, it's not even cost effective to hurt as many people as it used to be.
Exactly, because you can cause the emotional trauma with much less investment by properly producing and broadcasting it.
Scale it.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Well, what about the true history of China? No more of that nonsense lie about China. I want to know the real, true history.
Yeah,
Sergey's gonna tell us.
Of course, I'm always bringing up this channel. There's so many great videos, and I may have watched this one before, I just rewatched it. I cannot recommend these enough, and please kindly, we have 100 individuals watching, so I expect at least 600 views on this by tomorrow. No.
Yeah, come on.
These are just so amazing. Why? Because even if you would say, oh, this whole alternative history thing is complicated, which it is, of course, and it's of course, part also speculation, but at the very least, through the mathematical methods they demonstrate, they can at least show what is most likely simply forged up and a repeated pattern and a lie. And in these, 40-minute radio interviews, mainly with Gleb Nosovsky, but also, I believe, with the operator of some also new chronology project, which is related to them directly, or some museum, they really managed to bring home very basic points in a really understandable manner made for radio. They also at the end always have like 3 or 4 guest callers that have, different questions and opinions. Sometimes even someone saying, yes, you're fraudulent story, whatever. And it's always so cool how they respond so calmly. You have to imagine, I guess Gleb Nosovsky and Anatoly Fomenko have been dealing with this type of criticism with Fomenko, I guess 30, 50 years now. I mean, it's amazing. But yes, I cannot recommend these enough as like an initial foray into understanding what they're doing. And here he's simply explaining that the history of China as it is portrayed by the modern state of China simply cannot hold up properly. And it's even so sympathetic when he's being asked, so China wasn't ancient and so on. And then he says like, well, we have to consider which territory are we actually talking about? So again, it seems as if maybe the modern Chinese were simply claiming to be one continuous culture, which whatever was there before, whereas in truth, it seems much more like they have been supplanting a culture that was there before, and are maybe also claiming culture that may have happened in a slightly different territory from modern day China. Again, in a different time, and actually
they don't
a different
call
culture.
the Bellum Tartaricum the conquest of China for nothing, right? Actually, it's called the conquest of the great and most renowned empire of China. So not just China, but of the great and most renowned empire of it, right? Which is again,
yes,
that's the title for Bellum Tartaricum, right? So we're talking about the Tartars here in a lot of ways. And, I think a lot of people watch the show know we talk about the Manchurian plague and all of the different the 300 or 400 different ethnicities that make up China before the Han have displaced all the other nations of China. But yeah, that's...
But now that you bring this up, maybe bring up the lithography video, and also bring up the book again, which you just showed. Maybe just so this is just this is just more from Nosowski. So this one is good, and I want to compare it to. This is just more videos. I can recommend all of them. Yes, this one, lithography print. This one is too advanced, or is the next level, but
okay, I see here.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. This is what I'm about. So because somebody had brought up lithography, I guess this is stone lithography, and maybe there's also other ways to print. But basically, again, looking back at the book you've just shown, the book you've shown is supposedly from 1654 or something, and definitely this is made for print.
Yeah, this is a more modern. This is a modern print of it, though. I think this is a 19th century print of the book, but it's
right.
from
So
the lithographs from 1654. Correct.
All right. So at the very least, we should point that out, that almost any of these ones you can find are modern reprints. And then, of course, who is able to verify what the original really said exactly, and how easy would it be to exchange a few letters here and there if you want to, slightly alter it? I have to say, in some ways, I'm even surprised that even this kind of, survived.
Well,
Although,
the Jesuits have a different
yes.
thing going on,
At least keep some records of their own stuff. Yeah. So let's see. We can go on if you want to the underground city. That's actually something I wanted to show you, simply to ask if there's anything that you even know about it. Yeah, these are just more new chronology videos. All of them are recommended, as I said. We have the underground city, Derinkyu. I have not honestly properly researched these yet. I talked about Kush and Unterwelten. I'll bring that up again. It's in a different list. Yes, here.
That's pretty cool.
We can pull this up for a second.
The ventilation. Hold on, pulling it up right now. Unterweltkusch. Yep, I love this picture. These tunnels are so nice, right?
So that's the one reference we have in Austria, where I believe also last time I'd mentioned this, we have these caves everywhere, and it even seems there's quartz lines between them. There's questions if there could even be teleportation between them. And at least one of those pictures we saw there with the very nicely and smoothly chiseled out tunnel, it actually reminded me of Stargate. If you've seen the episode, I believe, where they introduced the Tok'ra, which is like the Goa'uld slave rebellion people, let's say, and they have this kind of crystal or something they just put somewhere, and it's like a boring machine, like fully automated, and it's like boring out the tunnel and making it very nice. Kind of reminds me of that. That's what it could be inspired by. And there is one quite well-known site that people can also visit in Austria, close to Vienna, where you can see some underground structures. You can see some, I believe, Latin inscriptions. Oh, here, very interesting. You can go back a little bit. It's showing the map. Yeah. So this is the Verbreitung unterirdischer Anlagen in Vorau und Umgebung. So this is just showing the spread of subterranean facilities in a region called Vorau and surrounding areas. And it very much seems that, these tunnels are like everywhere. And also what he's showing in one of the presentations is a supposed letter from, I believe, 15 something. We can dispute that or not, but the content is interesting because it's like a letter from a bishop or whatever. And it's also, I believe, written in German. So there's, many red flags in terms of the exact validity, but still the content is so curious because the bishop kind of writes, now by decree of the church or whatever, I order all the farmers to basically close off whatever subterranean entrance they may have. And this was kind of sparked because someone found one of those entrances. They went in and they found a black stone. And it's not exactly described what this stone is, even though I believe he then at some excavation even found that stone, and it has very special properties when you put it in sunlight or something. And at least according to that old supposed letter, it seems the church was afraid of it. They said, like, put it in a cloth and put it away, and basically destroy any entrances. And not only this one, but everyone now is ordered to close off or destroy their entrances. And obviously I would really love to know, could it be, oh, this is even the letter, see, great. I believe, okay, now this may not be that exact letter. This is from 1655. Oh yeah, and here, this is one I'm always bringing up. This is the Lindwurm. We just had it, the stone wyvern, let's say. That's a very common symbol. Yeah, here. That's a very common symbol for Carinthia, or it's even, let's say, the state county symbol in Klagenfurt. And everyone loves it, if that is exact the one, but there is one like that. But no one's really talking about it. It's kind of funny that, we have a county in Austria that has like a dragon as its main symbol, but it's just, you have a few nice myths surrounding it, but there's not really any clear explanation as to what this would mean exactly or what this would refer to. Yeah, so
in
here
the
I
place,
guess
where there's also the...
Exactly, it's the same area where you have many of these underground tunnels, but from what I understand, these tunnels actually spread through the whole of Austria. And as I mentioned last time, from what I had heard, even the former Red Bull chief for Austria by the name of Mateschitz, he supposedly actually was helping in some way to properly map out these underground areas. Unfortunately, his son, who's now taken over, is not as interested in mapping this out or supporting this further. But yeah, I mean, this is...
You know about the 1561 celestial phenomenon over Nuremberg.
Please tell me about it. I just know there's something about, medieval images with UFOs drawn in, which of course is also suspicious, but please tell me.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
I'm not sure what the graphic is supposed to describe.
I wasn't in Nuremberg at the time, so I can only say that the stories are that there were essentially the sun moved around. There were cigar-shaped crafts. Out of the cigar-shaped crafts emerged saucers that spun like discs and crossed the sky, veering instantaneously almost, from one point in the sky to another point in the sky. Sort of as if they were going along the sky like a plane would go Mach 5, though. Super fast. And then all of a sudden, instantaneously, just veering the other direction, right?
Sharp angles.
Sharp angles, exactly. Cylinders, spheres, and even crazy phenomenon that were like, illusions in the sky above that look almost like characters, things like that. Like, so the sun itself perhaps might have even been beyond that, but it also could have just been refraction of light or something like that. But people act like this was something more serious than that, right? This was maybe some sort of a UFO.
Well, maybe one thing we can bring up, simply because it's one of the most well documented, is the Phoenix Lights. I'm sure you're familiar with this. This was in, I believe, 1999 or 1997.
Mm-hmm. Skies, phone lights, all sorts of...
I mean, honestly, I don't think that's a real image, honestly. It looks like they're putting whatever the newspaper made up.
I think the newspaper probably just made that photo, but it is what it is. So Phoenix
Great.
Lights,
That's what they put on the
unidentified
front.
flying objects over. Military bases. Basically, the reason it's interesting is because, would you say, what was the term you used? Quick angles.
Sharp angles, not just
Sharp
the idea
angles.
that it doesn't seem to have the usual acceleration patterns we would see with traditional physics. Let's say
That's something that's really commonly observed in UAP sightings, right? Unidentified.
Exactly. Yes, that's the whole point. Whereas then we would say, okay, it's not an F-16 fighter jet or whatever, because at the very least it would have to bend or make a circle or something if you want to change direction, and not just seem to make full stop and completely change angle and then proceed with apparently amazing speed into a different direction. And yes, agreed, many people have observed phenomena like this, where of course the TR-3B comes in, which supposedly potentially may be a UFO type craft that I guess would be operated by quote unquote the US military, for lack of a better term. But even that by now, I mean, this is a model that's known for like, I don't know, 10, 20 years. So even if we would assume that, let's say, there's any advancement in military tech, even if only somewhat comparable to what they allow us to advance in civil technology, then we should be technically having all kinds of amazing things, which all are well hidden
I don't
and
know if I can
are
how
relegated
quickly
to
I could find the thing, but you've heard
alien
of
UFOs.
sky projections, right? Where you can actually project right into the sky with a laser, you know. And
Oh,
so
sweet. Mhm.
right. So here's imagine if you're a tribal
Two,
person.
you need 2 ground stations, or what do you need for, or 2 balloons or something from 2 directions, or
There
you
are
know the setup?
there are literally dozens of ways that you can do this. You know, some of the most early ways would have involved using planes, right? So you could do it from above, or using even helicopters. But now lasers are so much more powerful than they've ever been before, that you can actually do a lot of this from the ground. Because if you shoot a unilateral laser and you have, you know, a dozen arrays of unilateral lasers in a single space, you can actually project something right ahead of something, and you can actually angle the light even with a computer. You can do everything with one box now, but it's still better to have 2 boxes, because then you can have like what's that called? You know, where 2 lights give just
Parallax.
yeah, parallax, exactly. Thank you. So happy birthday, Raph. He knows what's up. Everybody, ladies, he knows what the parallax is. You know what I'm saying? Perfect lighting. It's important.
You know, often enough, now that I've been experimenting a little bit with large language models, I'm wondering, at least if to some extent, the human processing capacity is not also somewhat similar to these, you know, tensor calculations or whatever, you know, this black magic thing where just all the information coalesces in some strange fashion and then an answer pops up.
Right? It's true. Yeah, so you can use a projection. So the reason I bring that up, of course, is because the military have programs where they can, and they've done this since the 70s with other less impressive projectors that have now only gotten better, right? But even in the 70s, they're able to convince people, different tribes and fourth world people, and even in, you know, in France, there's stories.
Oh, you
of
mean
this.
there's like documented cases where they use that to be like,
Oh,
oh,
of
look,
course.
it's the Mother Mary or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't know. I didn't know there's
Yeah.
documentation for that. Okay.
Yeah, like
It's
skulls
like historical
in the
Project
sky.
Bluebeams, basically.
Yeah,
Okay.
Project Bluebeam.
Oh,
Kind of things
damn.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
things that were really terrifying, like to people, right? And we've talked about the one where they drained the blood of people in the woods and put microphones and things, right? You know about that? Vampire, CIA, PSYOP.
Are you serious?
The CIA were
To
convinced
fight communism, I'm sure.
that the best way to fight communism in the Philippines was to drain the blood from people's necks and hang them upside down in the woods, and then to put walkie-talkies around with the recordings of children screaming and crying in Vietnamese. So at very least Filipino. I'm sorry, Filipino, in Tagalog. So at very least, the people thought, wow, the CIA and the United States are freaking psychopaths, you know, like, or they believed that they were vampires. One way or another, they were terrified. And the idea was, hey, if we do this to a couple people, we won't have to kill that many people, because we'll scare them so much that they'll just surrender, right?
Okay, you said it was the Vietnam War?
Sorry, the Filipino.
Okay.
So
But
there's...
do you know if it actually worked out in terms of killing less people?
Well, that's really complicated, because the Filipino... So first off, it would have been easier
don't worry.
to say...
Maybe we killed 10% less people, but we traumatized 500% more.
It's not even that easy, because that would be like, I would say it'd be easier to say it like that if it was the Vietnam War, because at the Vietnam War you'd be like, we put in these many troops, etc. We don't have that with the Philippines, because the Philippines is a conquered territory of the United States that we stole from, well, we bought. Okay, Do you know how we got the Philippines? Do you know this whole thing? The mock battle of Manila?
No,
All
I
right,
just
so
know
there's
that
a
I think now
fake
they're
battle.
Catholic or something.
There's okay. First off, King Philip, good call. But they were originally an island array of some of the most impressive military exploring people in the world, right? At a certain point in history, they have amazing culture, actually, and they also invented the yo-yo. The yo-yo is a weapon. If you put a rock on a string, you can kill people. It's a fun fact. So the Filipinos were pretty cool, but then they were conquered by the Europeans and they were subjugated and generation after generation controlled, and it almost got their freedom. But then Roosevelt, I think it was Theodore Roosevelt, said, hey, we could probably just take this place. What if we bought it from Spain? Because Spain's about to lose it anyway. And Spain's like, all right, here's the deal. We're going to make a fake battle in Manila with fake bullets. We'll use blanks. And we're going to just get all of the Filipino soldiers outside of the capital. And then we're going to surrender to you. You're going to give us $15 million and then it'll be cool. And America's like, epic. And we did this. And the Filipinos are like, wait, what? Like, you can't keep us out of the battle. They're like, just stay back. Oh, hand in pocket Freemason thing. This is official history. This isn't even some weird story that only I know. Like, you can learn this in school. This is literally this is the mock battle of Manila. That's it. There's no other version of it. That's what happened. So we stole the Philippines, and for generations the Philippines have tried to become their own state.
It's a recurring theme, like stealing land and sovereignty through stage play.
Right. But then in the in the World War II period, the 1930s, 40s, we liberated the Philippines, right? Because Japan was in the process of colonizing and invading and taking over the Philippines. And so a deal was kind of agreed on that the Philippines would become its own nation state, which would be kind of consumed by this new economic debt system that was created. But also, the Philippines would have huge American military bases, huge American military presence, huge ideological military port culture, and that this would be essentially a pseudo-state. Because we realized at that point when we conquered them, we don't really want them to be a state, because then they can move back and forth and they would have the same rights. So they became kind of property of the United States, which was weird because the United States was technically a democracy even at that point. So it was like taxpayers owning other people, which is a really cool and weird idea for the United States to have even like embarked on.
Yes, don't worry. We only need to uphold all these repressive regimes and dictatorships so you can uphold your sacred, free, and open democracy, republic,
but that was
whatever
only,
you
but that was
imagine you want to
only,
call it.
that was only the setup, and I'm not going to talk about it, but that's only the setup, because like that was like what you have to think about when you think about the question you asked. Because if you're asking like how many people died because of this, because now you've got this thing that's trying to liberate itself, that's trapped under multiple economic regimes, and Duterte was actually, I mean, is a pretty interesting character, right? Duterte is like the dictator, quote unquote, but he's really more of a leader and a loved figure, because he's trying to gain independence economically, financially, and ideologically from both the United States and from Islam, and let Filipinos be their own people. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, they're at their best point that they've been in 1,000 years, but it's, a point where everyone's really contentious with it. So, yeah, a lot of people have died over that.
So much for the vampires. Yes.
Dude.
How did we veer off on this? I don't even know anymore.
UFOs in 1591 Nuremberg, obviously.
How did we even get that
far? Like, completely reasonable topics to talk about, by the way. So we're talking about the Unterwelt with Dr. Heinrich Kusch, and how we should probably check out more of the videos from Heinrich and Ingrid Kusch.
Yeah, so actually now I'm seeing that on Crop FM, for example, another very interesting channel. There may actually be more for me to listen to as well. I've seen some of his presentations, but I also here have to reinvestigate. And also anyone interested in Hollow Earth stuff, this is like the guy, I would say, from Austria or maybe even German-speaking region to listen to. He was a researcher officially for university, and then I believe, I don't know, he got hired back, or now he's not there anymore. And, you know, depending on his current status, he can be more or less forthcoming with speculations, let's say. But I believe the point that is quite well understood is that it seems that it's some of the chiseling work is just very advanced and like so laser exact, we wouldn't even properly be able to reproduce it today. Maybe not the one that's being shown right here, but some particular ones that they found, also claiming it's a few thousand years old. I'll have to recheck if he's applying carbon dating or not, because of course we know that can be faulty. But still, even just in terms of technical capability demonstrated, there's a few examples, whereas some modern day technicians, from what I heard, would be at odds in terms of being able to recreate that even today. So yeah, I'm not sure all of the things he's explaining right here. I have to check out that particular video. I don't think I've seen that yet. Yeah. And then there's a radio, Crop FM, where he had the other shows, and this is the gravitational telephone. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yes.
Are we on the moon landing? Then we get to Matt Walsh.
Oh yeah, you're flipping around. So okay, yeah, here now we're at the mooncake.
We could go to another if you don't want to. We can.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
All right. Matt Walsh. Maybe I'm the victim of a perfect troll. You know, because on base AF they're like, Andreas, he's probably not serious about anime. He's probably not serious about raw milk. But man, who goes out of their way to post about? I don't know, man.
Oh wait, he was the guy who also said the raw milk thing we had a few shows back. He was the same guy.
I'm just saying. I point out people's flaws. I shouldn't do it. Maybe he's cool. I like that to some extent, but the raw milk thing and the anime thing, I'm just pointing him out. You know what I mean?
No, you're spot on, and it's like double fun. I think you can leave it run as a B-roll here without the sound. Shouldn't be a problem.
I don't know. Like,
oh, do you think?
Yeah. Like,
you think?
Why don't you tell me? I used to believe at the moon landing. You don't anymore. You got to pry that.
So it's pretty funny because here apparently, so if it's Matt Walsh was the guy who made this "Am I a Woman" or whatever documentary.
Yeah, and the news documentary, which is actually hilarious. Am I a racist? And good documentary. Have you heard about the new one he's done? Am I a Racist? So Am I a Racist is his new documentary where he went around kind of like Borat in a Michael Moore scenario where you're pretending to be a white anti-racist, whatever you call the people. What do you call the social justice warriors who are trying to make amends? What's the compensation? You know, there's a whole thing that they want to give money to black people. What's it called?
Restitution?
Something like that. Restitution. No, there's more. Someone else. DEI, all that stuff. You guys know the words in the chat. You know all the woke terms. I've forgotten. I'm back in California and I've forgotten. This is crazy. So reparations.
Reparations, yeah.
Thanks, Gigger. You're a good one. You get it. So am I a racist? He goes around with like long hair and glasses and pretends to be like a Berkeley liberal arts DEI SJW who wants to do reparations. And everyone around him want to do that as well. And so he ends up catching people that eventually a lot of the people just dropped out of social media when this documentary hit because it showed the hypocrisy of these groups that are kind of exploiting these socially traumatized upper middle class white kids, right? Because these kids have just kind of decided that the world is in peril. It's their fault.
It's almost like it's almost like mental poverty tourism or something. Oh my God.
Yeah, but it's a cult, it's the same mentality. I mean, if you've ever seen how cults work, they're like, hey, we're going to make the world a better place. Other people don't get it. You get it. And you're beautiful for getting it. It's hard, you still have a lot of problems, and we're going to help you with those problems. And, and like, just give us everything you have. Because that's
with gender reassignment surgery.
What do you think it's going to take? It's going to take everything you have, right? To make the world a better place, right? To make yourself better. It's just the same thing. So it's kind of interesting, and he made that doc. That's why I bring it up.
Thank you. All right, you keep talking for a second. Give me 1 second.
Well, Joe Rogan flip-flops. I don't even know what I'm supposed to talk about now. I'm gonna check the chat out. Let's see here. You're a speciesist. You're pro-human. Okay. What do you think that means, right? Like, are all humans the same? Like, what about, like, are you pro-human like Sentinel Island, or are you pro-human like New Yorker or somebody in a tower in a city? Like, what kind of human? Or is it just all of it? You just want all of that? And then doesn't that require an environment? So how pro-human are you? Are you pro-human enough to be pro-Earth? You know, that's my first thought. Happy birthday to Raph. Happy birthday. Santa Cruz Glow. That's true. I do have the Santa Cruz Glow. It's very nice right now, if you couldn't tell. It's very beautiful in Santa Cruz. I'm going to get some sunlight in. Also today, I'm going to have 2 more shows. After this is a show with David Butler. And then later on is a show with Rob Dew from InfoWars.
Oh,
yeah,
nice. I have some questions for you.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'll leave the filtering up to you. So, anyways, let's get back to the video. So, actually, something I wanted to say about it.
I did post on Twitter, on X, that Alex Soros should buy InfoWars if they're forced to sell it, and then he should hire Alex Jones back to just keep doing what he's doing. I think that would be good for everybody.
That would probably be reasonable. So, anyways, we have this Matt Walsh guy, and apparently now he thinks he can be an expert in anything. This is another video by Robot Polisher. But anyways, so I wasn't aware that this is Matt Walsh, and this is the same guy with the raw milk. And apparently, I'm not sure what his role now is.
He's Michael Moore
it's kind of, yeah, but on what level? Because now he plays to be, or actually is, so ignorant of any potential issues with the moon landing that he's giving Joe Rogan the opportunity to flip back on his position again, as you properly explained initially, because Joe Rogan for quite some time was very, logical and apt with his understanding of the topic. And then a few years back, suddenly was like, oh no, it's the greatest thing ever. And now he's flipping back again. I'm not sure exactly, how should I say, if there is like a long-term plan behind this, or if these are just like short-term tactical decision he's making because of whatever contract he currently has or doesn't. Because I had heard that Joe Rogan, I guess now is not with Spotify anymore or whatever. I would just really love to see or to know like who is giving him the hint to be like, oh, now you can go more into this topic again. Or maybe someone mentioned and said now he had to, let's say, revert. Isn't that in Islam that they also say you don't convert but you revert, right? So it's like reverting to his initial
apocatastasis.
Exactly, to his initial position, simply because otherwise nobody would even be watching him anymore, because that's one thing where most people already are up to speed that, let's say not all the footage is super original or whatever you want to say, if you want to make the mildest claim possible. So yeah, it's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I wonder. I'll have to think about that more. The idea that Joe would want to go back to talking about things he talked about before the Spotify deal is interesting. That maybe, it's
at least on this position, it appears that this is what he's doing for whatever reason he's doing that. I mean, for me, honestly, if I would be sitting there with such apparent intellectual dishonesty, I don't know. I hope my head would explode. But I mean, I believe there is a quote. I believe it's an original Joe Rogan quote, something along the lines of, I would lie to my own mother or something like this. So, maybe it takes a certain type to be on
Adam Baber, Plymouth Rock equals the moon. We didn't land on the moon. The moon landed on us. All right. I can vibe with that. That's Malcolm X. Okay. What about this? The robot police, LMFAO.
There's another Robot Polisher video you have to put in. Oh yeah, it's, I guess, just making fun of Neil deGrasse Tyson, I guess.
That's always good. That's always a heartwarming activity. I think cathartic and look
But
at
I
him.
think the
He kind
third,
of reminds me of a globe, doesn't he? You know, a big
yeah, there
old
should be a third
globe.
video, which maybe is the most interesting and the most consensual, let's say, as to not, pick on any side.
This is the best capture of him. Okay, I feel better now. Sorry.
I mean, to anyone who likes this type of entertainment, I can only recommend conspiracy.
I calculated. Okay, okay. I calculated this, and
I can recommend
sorry, I can't help
Conspiracy Music Guru's new song called Space Cunt, also with very fun visuals. But actually, what I want to show the most here is the third video. You can bring up his video first, yeah, of course.
I like
but
how
it's not
before-
safe for all audiences, yeah. And it
Wait.
says in the beginning.
That's true. I like how when I tried to type conspiracy, the first thing that came up was the Franklin child rings and the conspiracy of silence. Yeah, right. Like Google knows me. They're like, oh, that's what you want to watch. Like, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Radicalize me more. Why not?
I'm not sure I want to see that again. So, yeah, but pull up his video first. That's cool. Pull up Conspiracy Music Guru just to give him a shout out. Everyone should check out his channel. He's making amazing music.
Dude.
And whether or not you like the particulars he does amazing solfeggio music, which is amazing for anyone. But also, if you want something fun, you can watch this
actually
video.
came up yesterday because I was talking about how I was showing music to people, and someone was saying that they didn't like certain kinds of synthesizer music, and I was like, oh, maybe it's because of the tuning frequency. And so I wonder, because for me, I tend to like 444 because it's sort of it's just, I don't know. I like 444, look it up. But 432 is a good one. That's a natural harmonic. And so I sent them some 432 and they're like, oh, wow, that sounds perfect. Obviously, So then, you check out Conspiracy Music Guru, everything. Alex has actually an app, even when they listen to their music, that everything is in 432, so it converts your own music to listen to. But I've noticed it also changes the kind of music you like to listen to, and so tuning their guitar to 432 is brilliant also, to make sure that all the music's in that frequency. So it's worth it to listen to just because it's good for you, I would say, even beyond anything else. Amazing music, totally fun music, really funny music a lot of the time, and witty music videos that are kind of making fun of all of the issues that we're talking about today, which is always cool when someone does that.
So I want to tie it back together. Of course, he's also featured on the Exertus McMoon tapes, which are impossible to find through regular YouTube search, as we've demonstrated many times.
Teehee.
Everyone has to go on Exertus channel and enter McMoon tapes to find that documentary. However, what I wanted to show now, see, it still doesn't show up.
That's just wild, man. Like, why would you?
It still does not show up. I mean, YouTube by now, your AI should have picked up that we've been discussing and complaining about this 5 times, and it's a little bit suspicious that we can enter the exact search term and not find Andreas's video, whereas he basically, once again, reconfirmed that NASA is not the most diligent in terms of safeguarding their supposed original footage. To put it mildly.
Why is it? Do I have to like pin it? Like, what's the deal? Like, why would they make it?
No, you can only find it on your channel when you search, but on your own channel. Then you have a chance.
This thing should really be pinned somehow. I don't know. I'm just gonna like create a post. Pinned. McMoon pinned. Somebody like make a playlist. If you make a playlist, a lot of the time that wins. If a bunch of users have public playlists that say McMoon, then and have this in the title or something like that.
Yeah, that can be a workaround, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't tell you that, but yeah. Hey, look at that. Those are all the McMoon tapes.
And so why I want to bring this up is because of the third video by Robot Polisher, which says smoking gun evidence. People can judge for themselves. You can go to like the second third or something. Third.
I'm enjoying this already. This reminds me.
And
I used to watch this all the time in 1996. Like, I feel like I saw this. Yeah.
And basically, this is showing 2 supposed, I guess, launches or whatever. One from 96 and one from 90, I believe. But towards the end, it's showing it side by side. And that's the main thing to see. Of course, here they're just showing you close up. I didn't even properly get what they wanted at this point. Here you can see whatever floating in space, whatever this is. But the main point is at the very end where you can simply see them side by side. Oh, now you can see. It's 96 and then it's 99 and here you go. So I don't know. It must just be a cosmic coincidence that it looked exactly the same.
Wow, the frames are on top of each other right now. That's pretty messed up. So, oh man, that's so annoying. Yeah, I mean, who had computers that could render a quality 3D model in 1996? Silicon Graphics.
Well, in 1990, the original was 1990.
Right, even in 1999.
In 1990, they would have the pre-release of it, maybe.
No, they had it in the.
But
let's see. Look, 1990, December 1990, I think is the first. 81 is the first Clark and Mountain View. 1990. Delaware Corporation in January 1990. So reincorporated as a Delaware Corporation. So like by the Delaware Corporation, by the way, is in America. You'll make a corporation in Delaware. It's kind of the fad. It was at least the fad thing to do. Is you do it in Delaware because they had pretty good corporate laws. It's a corporate haven, right? Essentially, great place to be a corporate person. But they built $100,000 machines in 1990, and probably like $250,000 machines before that. You seen those, right?
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with those, but they were like accessible for movies and so on from maybe 1990, 91, 92.
Yeah, from 1990.
So as it could have been that a government institution may have had similar processing capacities a few years earlier. That's not too unreasonable. But are you sure that whatever we saw on these two ones were not miniatures or something, but actually?
No, I'm not. Actually, I was just thinking about that. What's that movie? I'm trying to remember that movie.
Because I just recently, for some reason, stumbled into this retrospective rabbit hole on YouTube, which is kind of cool because if you ever have interested to rewatch any series, you don't need to rewatch the series. You just watch a retrospective on YouTube, which I did for, I guess, something related to Star Trek. Mm-hmm. And there they said like they had quite advanced miniature stuff,
right,
up to like 1992, and only then certain series and so on started switching over to CGI. Of course, that's like movie level.
But you can do both. So
industry.
So yeah, I mean, this is true. Star Trek Enterprise was shot. Actually, I could just do it with this. Star Trek Enterprise shot upside down. So you have the entire ship upside down so that you see the top of the ship, right? And the bottom of the ship is the only part that's maybe obscured. And that's how you get that angle. But if you want to have something do a crazy 3-dimensional pan or, go through a thing, you need to do compositing and you need to have rendering. And so that was becoming possible in like 1970s. 1981 is when Disney starts really showing off that technology. And anytime you see Disney doing something, at least in their experimental lab, that means that the military is also using it. But Disney's Flight of the Navigator is a really weird one. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, Flight of the Navigator, but it's about a little boy he finds a spaceship and it has a robot voice, which is Pee Wee Herman. It's very weird. There's a lot of questions to be asked about the model because they said it was the first 3D modeled ship in a movie ever. But it was it, and how much of it was is such a question because they definitely had real models. They had one in Florida, very close to, the Epstein launch area. They had another one in Scotland in a really interesting, close to the creature labs. So building these actual models that were like 30, 40 feet that someone could get inside of and recording it from all different angles was definitely part of the deal, but it was at scale. See, here's like an example of the actual model, right? But doing both makes the most sense because once you have all the dimensions, you can scan it and make a virtual version of it, and so that's the most likely thing that they would do.
Right.
I don't know. I like this idea. We should look into that more. What's about this? The boycott in China, mooncakes? What?
No, this is just anybody who wants to feel like to be happy to live in the West. They can watch channels like China Observer. I'm not regularly watching it. I just stumbled across it and thought it's kind of funny. I'm not sure how widespread these things really are. I mean, here they say 300 million.
I just had my first mooncake in my life. the like, was it last year? And the Mormons, I went to a thing and they had like an ice cream party. And
What
they
is
had
it made of? Like flour and sugar and
yeah,
eggs
they
or
had
something?
they had like an ice cream party and then they had mooncakes, which are these. They're kind of, yeah, it's like a flan.
Okay, and here the speculation basically is they use too much of some kind of artificial preservative, which
Hmm.
basically turns it hard as stone.
Yeah, no, these were cool. They had good ones, but mooncakes, man, interesting idea
And
as
I
well.
thought the term is funny, so that's all.
Yeah, what was the name of that wood that grows in the moon again?
Mondholz, Thoma, but you can enter him on YouTube actually. There should be presentations about this. Mondholz. Thoma, Thom, Mondholz. Holz. Mondholz. Almost. The Mond is Mond, not moon.
Oh, Monday. Okay.
It makes me feel like I'm on my phone and have the wrong language in the spell checker.
I'll get
Yeah,
my life together.
Mondholz, exactly. Erwin Thoma Mondholz. Yeah, this would be the playlist. If anyone wants to know more about Mondholz, this is the guy who's been repopularizing this in German-speaking region.
Yeah, interesting guy. And then here is.
Yeah, so this is something you love because apparently we haven't
Oh my God.
extensively enough talked about this yet. This is from a documentary. I also had the full version. I should be easy enough to find because I recently rewatched the full version of this. And this is just an excerpt where basically, and you can see this is even maybe even a TV production actually,
Yeah.
where you have the bodyguards of Honecker. Honecker was the famous, I guess, chief of the Democratic Republic of Germany, so East Germany, when Germany was still divided after the Second World War up until, I guess, 91 officially, with the
But
whole
then
Berlin
again,
Wall.
isn't Germany divided into today?
Well, that is another topic.
A little
But what's
jab,
so
I'm sorry.
amazing here is that apparently these guys then went to Chile, and whom did they had with them? The young, I guess, party secretary or propaganda assistant or whatever by the name of Angela Merkel. And there is even apparently supposedly a paper written by Honecker, which was a 20-year plan for Germany. And it very much seems, whatever political divide, real or imagined, that basically a outwardly communist regime managed to install the supposedly democratic chancellor of the German state, modern day, for, I guess, 15 or 20 years, dominating politics in Germany. I mean, it's kind of hilarious if anyone would even believe in ideological divides and not all of the power groups somehow being in cahoots on some level. This would be incredibly amazing. And at least in mainstream, few people really talked about this. I think it kind of went around in like alternative circles or some social media, but I don't think this ever really got the spotlight officially. That's, yeah, I mean, because the whole trope until then, of course, was fighting communism. And then you basically have a communist party secretary, propaganda, whatever, literally becoming the chancellor of not just East Germany, but the reunited Germany. So I think it's kind of amazing.
I was trying to remember the names of all the people, and I'm gonna ruin it. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Cause like there's the three of them on the beach together when they're young. Merkel and the chair. It's like a British lady. These are like three of the most important people in the world. You guys can do this at home. Congratulations. Whatever. Anyway,
so much for all the world is a stage. Anyhow, it's kind of, yeah, I just think it's an amazing story. And the people interviewed here, they're literally even like, they were officials in that regime, like bodyguards or whatever, and drivers and so on. And they are recounting that story, so it seems legit enough. And I guess I'm just flabbergasted by how open source and by now official these conspiracies can be, how they completely trash any preconceived notion of ideological divides between party lines or even between supposed governmental systems such as democracy versus communism. And here you see them seamlessly intertwine, depending on workforce availability or whatever other factor you would want to put there. It's amazing.
So close to finding the thing, man. Just for you know, the YouTube reasons, photo may not be of Angela Merkel. They declined to comment on the photo. But yeah, these are supposed to be. I'm trying to remember, man. Who are these people? I'm gonna get in trouble just for showing that, even though it was blurred. That's the thing. But there's a whole, yeah. Basically, it reminds me of the what's that movie, The Kingsman? Because in The Kingsman, there's an early scene where they show that the royal family, the three cousins, run Europe at the beginning of World War One. The King of England, Franz Ferdinand, and the Chancellor, right? So it's basically all of Europe is controlled by three cousins who had the same aunt. And I feel like that's the same thing with Merkel. That's, you know, she's just somebody who's been there before.
Right. Yeah, right. Well, you know, if you're the third cousin or something of someone who actually really does have money and influence and is not in the public eye, you may well catch an actor job, you know, to be chancellor of a country. I can well imagine that.
Well, let's see what happens. I'm wondering if I'm going to get in trouble for sharing that. You know, that was pretty close to the limit. I don't know. I like the idea. We should definitely look into that more. Anybody associated with the DDR seems kind of interesting, right? Like, I know that in Germany, that's like a whole thing. They're like, oh, they never do anything halfway. Or, you know, Malus Maleficarum. This came up. This is interesting. This kind of reminds me of Mr. Mistopheles. The Hammer of the Witches.
Yeah, so all the other links I have here, they're basically extra links which I cannot talk much about. I just put them there to anyone who wants to do some extra research, find some interesting ideas. I can't say too much about it. I just picked them up because either they sounded interesting or they are somehow related to a topic that interests me. This is, I guess, supposedly some old, witchcraft treaty. I was like, maybe this is your alley with the whole Hali Runas and witchcraft trials. I wonder if this is a reprint too.
Are you there? Did it get blanked? I can't hear you anymore. Say it again.
I'm here.
It got
No,
blanked out.
I'm wondering if this is a reprint too, is what I'm saying.
I guess it's about how to find and persecute witches and also a bit of demonology. Okay. I find it interesting. I mean, a lot of these things are worth studying also just to understand misogyny. That sounds kind of funny to say, but it's pretty crazy how many women workers were just like killed. They're like, oh, that lady, she's making medicine or beer and money, more importantly. Get her. You know, this seems like a big issue at the time. Helena Schuberin, the papal bull Sumus, the witch bull, which formed the basis of investigation, permitted the investigation of heresy. All right. Well, if we're not going to get in trouble before, here we will now. What's on this one?
I'm sorry, I forgot what it's about. I just knew it was interesting enough to put it up. I guess this is probably some kind of I guess US military recounting, which is not exactly following the official narrative. We don't even have to open it up. It's just for reference. I can rewatch it. I can tell you more about it. Maybe I even just saw it in some YouTube chat and someone was like, oh, you have to check it out. Oh yeah, here, graphic and disturbing images. US Army Ranger who was awarded 2 Purple Hearts. Okay, reporting war crimes basically from the front lines. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like fun. Oh, yeah. And Wojciech. How I say this? Wojciech? You know what I'm talking about? You know what this is, right?
No, I was hoping you're gonna tell me. I don't even know why I bookmarked this.
Oh, dude, this is cool. So this is I thought everyone in Germany and Austria must have to study this or something like that. So this is this fragment of a short story kind of that was written in February of 1837 or some of the time around that. Maybe it was finished in July or something like that, 1836. But it's not really finished ever. And There's a video, let me see, that actually explains it pretty well in 9 minutes, and it's done with Legos. And so the idea is that there's a character, I think it's Wojciech. I don't know how you people speak your language, but
I
he
guess it would
is
even be Polish or something. Wojciech, I would guess, but
yeah.
Polish, I think. No,
Yeah,
Czech, Polish.
seems like something like that. Well, you know, your East and your West are really convoluted ideas, my friend. Like, let's be real.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's not tell that to any patriots.
Especially them, yeah. Especially a soccer hooligan. Let's tell the football fans. He's got a wife. No, sorry. He had a lover one time, and they have a kid together. But she doesn't really care about him because he's a schmuck. He's a nebbish, you know? So she's going around trying to get with this big soldier guy. And there's a bunch of other characters, including a doctor. But the doctor is just a psychopath and a sadist. And he's experimenting on Wojciech just for the fun of it. Like, he makes him eat nothing but peas. You know? Just nothing but peas for months and months and months. And then just studies his urine and sees what happens to him. You know, just for the fun of it. And Wojciech doesn't understand this or know what's going on. He just kind of trusts the doctor. And his life is hard. And everyone's just kind of messing with him. And his boss talks to him like a dog. It's a really weird story. But also there's no numbers on the pages. So which order the scenes are completely up to interpretation. I would highly recommend both reading it and trying to analyze it, because I'm still trying to figure out what order the original is supposed to go in, because there's different interpretations of that. But there's a lot to this story. Essentially, it's kind of like The Catcher in the Rye or something of 19th century Germany.
Funnily enough, I read Catcher in the Rye, but I don't think I ever heard about this in school.
Yeah, maybe it's a little too dark or something. I don't know, but it seems pretty good. Like he's like his whole life just sucks. You know what I mean? Like he's working all the time. His boss treats him like crap. His girlfriend, his baby mama, is sleeping with this other dude. It's driving him crazy. And she's spending the money he gives him. He gives her money for the baby, but she spends it on like jewelry. You know what I mean? Like she wants to have like nice earrings and stuff like that. So yeah, it's his whole life is miserable. His kid's not even gonna turn out any better than him, and it's just a bad situation, man. It's pretty cool.
Sounds like early Black Pill theater or something.
Yeah, it's like early Black Pill theater. And so what I really look forward to is like seeing different interpretations of this done in theaters, because you have to imagine this is some sort of a nouveau riche play that could be done in so many different ways depending on your interpretation. So I like that. I want to see that done. So yeah, I recommend checking out the Wojciech.
Yeah, so this I just put up for reference. This is apparently from Harvard University, and it's about the Euclidean problems or something. And basically, I just pointed it out because I know like the 47th Euclidean problem or something relates to the Freemasonic logo, from what I understand. And so yeah, I just put it up for reference. I didn't have time to properly go through this yet. But I was like, oh, interesting. At least there is a book about it. Oh, yeah. And the particular special thing about this is that supposedly even the early versions were already colored in or something like that.
Wow.
And like make it easier to understand. So maybe it's not the original source book, but as you can see, it's like by Oliver Byrne and maybe made more easy to understand. That's not really like my main field of study, but I guess anyone into symbology and geometry may want to take a look at that book.
Mighty stoked to have this book in the print. Oh my god, this looks really pretty. This is crazy. I can't believe the amount of work that would have gone into doing a triple print or a quadruple print. Wow. To do this. Because you have to do every page 4 times. Black, red, yellow, and blue. That's crazy. They really cared. All right. Elden Ring is an allegory for alchemy.
Yeah, so there's a few videos and speculations about that, whether Elden Ring, may relate to some holy book scriptures. I mean, the one thing I will say, I've just played it a little bit. What's very obvious and kind of eerie about it is immediately, for lack of a better term, you get like this Gothic Tartaria vibe, both in terms of like how the world is structured. I mean, you can even play a Japanese samurai or like ninja type. And then quite early, you arrive in regions where you basically have these halfway sunken and even like mud areas, like swamp areas. And you literally have half sunken cathedrals where you're playing. So, yeah, I just wanted to point out like there's a lot there. And it also makes you think of how oftentimes are even these big blockbusters so heavily inspired by existing texts or like medieval or maybe partially obfuscated and hidden history. And very, very often it seems that just like with even cartoons or something, the programming, the pre-programming, and also sometimes some at least understanding is encoded in these things that are generally considered entertainment by the mainstream. But of course they must have some background even to have a story. And usually, again, if many people are attracted to it, it's often to me an indication like there's something there, it's some
lore. Yeah.
Yeah, some lore, some quote unquote truth, even though of course maybe portrayed very differently. But again, I mean, what more to say, even just half sunken cathedrals and mud flooded areas or swamp areas.
Right.
Yeah.
And the obfuscation of using potions, right? You're like, it's a video game, so they use potions, so easy to hide in plain sight what's going on. Also, Alpha Vedic podcast, which is pretty great. We love Alpha Vedic podcast, Dr. Bear.
Yeah, so I believe you've done an interview with him. I just wanted to point it out because I think Mephistopheles from Forgotten Arvanite History Neuropa episode recommended this. I said it was really cool to listen to. I haven't actually listened back to it yet. That's why it's in the extra notes where I'm unable to comment. And I just wanted to point it out, anyone who wants to check out Alpha Vedic. I guess they would be talking about history here too, but I'll have to listen to it.
Oh, okay.
You did a show with them, right?
Yeah, I have done a show with them about Tartaria. But also they do a lot of things about health, and they're very, I mean, Dr. Bear's doing bioavailable medicines from natural sources, usually growing things, which you could also say is a sort of herbology and alchemy. And Mike does amazing tech stuff, actually. He's been working on creating internodal systems that can back up and store and transceive data and media, particularly for people, so that you wouldn't need to be connected to the grid. You could have your own little servers that peer-to-peer made it possible for an alternative internet, right? Which would be just as faster and also have, no censorship, which is great. So
yeah, that technology is about 25 years overdue.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, he's, he makes the stuff. The problem is that people just don't use it because they're like, okay, I can just hack into, I can just connect to the grid. So why would I ever want to,
Which is one reason why I also believe there will be no two major internet outages or something, because then people really would start thinking about these kind of technologies.
I mean, if we all just used it, it would be a lot better than worrying about having our internet shut down, having occasional blackouts. I mean, the fact that we have these weird grid blackouts where they're like, oh, Discord, Google's down, YouTube's down. I mean, it doesn't happen that often unless there's some sort of a critical strike or a war or some espionage that we're not allowed to know about. But still, there are these crazy DNS, situations, and that wouldn't happen anymore. So we should really use that tech. I'm just saying. There's also another video from Archaics with Afi Hussein.
Yeah, this is also just another recommendation. I'll have to listen back to it. Exploring, I guess, also the interconnections in history and potentially the Quran. But I still have to listen back to this one because I'm not listening to his channel regularly. And then, we can skip the rest. There's one Mind Unveiled. Is this I want to talk about last?
Okay. Oh yeah, mine
There
unveiled
is,
Spy Kids, human trafficking. Yeah.
yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's probably quite spot on. And anyone who doesn't know, the recent video they did, Jesus Spoke Arabic, was inspired by the works of David Hume Jr. and is also referenced. And they always do like nice documentary style videos, which are easy to watch, I guess, and also definitely a channel that you can recommend to people that maybe are only starting their research, because they put quite a lot of effort into having high production value, which is of course great to spread the message and even just awareness or peak interest in all of these topics, so that, you know, we have more conscious attention on it and can hopefully figure out what is actually going on.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of Oddfellow symbolism in the movie. I haven't seen Mind Unveil's take yet, but I don't see what else it could really be about.
Yeah, it's
I
like
mean, like,
content never ending, right?
yeah. I think it's interesting 'cause some people I'll talk to and they'll act like, yeah, but this is safe, right? Or that's safe. You know,
Safe for your children to watch, or what do you mean?
no, I mean, it's just such a, like, the idea they're like, well, not all children's authors, most children's authors are normal, right? Or something. And I'm like, what is the heck does that mean? Like,
Well,
what kind
maybe
of
they are,
person,
but
what,
how many
no,
of them
no,
actually
no,
get to
no.
publish anything?
No, how oxymoronic is that of an idea? And I'm like, I went to school to learn child psychology for a while because I figured if you made media for kids, it would maybe help kids in the future. But that's the same thing that they're doing, you know, if you think about it. So the idea of being a normal person
Help you to
who's
be a
interested,
mindless drone in the future when you grow up.
how normal am I? Let's be honest. Like, so
I
the
want
idea
to
of a
be a
normal
programmed
person
drone
who
when I
wants,
grow up.
yeah, like someone who wants to make children's media, children's authors, there's probably, like, just in general, you got to figure out why. Why would you want to talk to children? What do you want to? Why do you want to be? What do you relate to about children in specificity? So it seems a little weird in general. I mean, I'm not saying that all children's authors are bad or something like that. That people make me for, because I like the idea of doing it myself, but I have very clear intentions. I think, like, I want maybe the Boy Scout manual back in kids' reality a bit. It's like basically gone now, and kids don't know how to tie knots. You know, there's just little things like that. I would totally make children's media, but when you look at something like Spy Kids, it seems kind of clear. I don't know. What's the other movie he did with the chainsaws? You know what I'm saying?
I'm
Pretty
not even
good movie.
familiar with the source material. I just thought like, oh, it is probably popular.
Oh, you
I
never
haven't
seen
even
Spy
watched it.
Kids?
No,
It's about two parents that have these two spy kids that have to rescue them, essentially. Although there's a little bit more to it if you think about it, and I think he's probably going to say that the kids are maybe not even really their kids or something. Who knows? Who knows? But I think they are their kids, even though they kind of look different. I could see them being their kids. The whole point, other kids are being kidnapped all the time and run through this sort of evil Willy Wonka, you know, thing. There's also several sequels, but the dude, what's his name? Who made Spy Kids? By Robert Rodriguez. Robert Rodriguez made a Quentin Tarantino movie about the chainsaw girl as well. He did Sin City. He
From
did
Dusk Till Dawn.
Machete. He did. Where's the Quentin Tarantino one? Hold on. Quentin Tarantino Rodriguez. Someone in the, if you guys catch me before I get there, and you put that in there. Grindhouse. In Grindhouse, he made, what's the first part of it? Is Planet Terror? Is that it? Is that the one he made? Yeah, Planet Terror, which is about a lady who has like a machine gun for a leg. You know what I mean?
What?
Have you never seen Grindhouse? Grindhouse is really good, actually. Grindhouse is really good because it's a double feature. So you have one movie by Rodriguez and one movie by Tarantino. And Tarantino's movie is obviously better, but Tarantino's movie also has this interesting quality. Oh, sorry. It has this interesting quality where it removes people that you hate. So at the beginning of the movie, you have this obnoxious scene that's sort of reminiscent of Reservoir Dogs, but it's with all LA girls, and you're just like, I don't want to be in this movie. Like, I don't want to be here. I want to leave. And then they die, and you're like, oh, Quentin Tarantino. You know what I mean? So there's something to that, I think. But yeah, I don't know if that's really the point. Well, okay, that was basically most of the things that we were trying to cover. There's one more link that you were just saying, and last but not least about.
Right. So we could always do a bonus on the Austrian federal elections, which will happen this Sunday. But I'll spare you.
Why wouldn't we?
We'll
Why wouldn't we talk about that? Why wouldn't we?
No,
talk about the
we'll
Austrian
talk about that last. Let's pull up this video first. We go to U.S. elections first, which is this video. I mean, elections, if you want to,
Dude, we have electoral dysfunction in America.
So I wish that was the only place. So this is Witzit having a quite interesting interview with someone who apparently directed or contributed to this upcoming documentary called What is Treason? The website here you can see is thisistreason.com. And supposedly, apparently, the guy on the right hand says that a few years ago he was just a crypto bro and only recently got interested in politics and apparently interviewed different border agent guards. So this is like on the ground and basically explaining how the system works, whereas it appears, and I'm going to frame this in the proper way now, that US border guards potentially unwittingly are assisting in trafficking by basically picking up individuals right on the border and then delivering them to some kind of places, not really properly checking, if the relative really is the relative, or not having DNA tests, which apparently supposedly were in place during Trump. So the guy on the right-hand side, in the end, is, let's say, pretty pro-Trump, you could say, or at the very least, let's just put it like that. He says that in these different administrations, you really had very, very different on-the-ground policy in terms of how well you were verifying if whoever is coming across the border actually should come across, and especially, of course, if it's a child, if they actually get attributed really to some family member or some random whatever, where then, of course, anything can happen. And he claims that this problem was heavily reduced during Trump's time and now has flared up again. And what would be interesting to see, maybe I'll get to watch the documentary or these interviews, what these border guards actually say, what really happened on the ground. And what's also, I guess, good about it is Austin Witzit then brings up the idea that him and most of his audience don't necessarily believe in the political divide and don't necessarily trust any of these actors. And yeah, I mean, the chat was kind of divided, but Mata, or I'm not sure what his name is on the right-hand side, Ryan, he both said that he would take a bullet for Trump, but he then also said that he doesn't trust him, maybe on that, let's say, political level. But at least he seems very convinced that it actually made a big difference that the Trump administration handled at least that particular situation better, and therefore theoretically, in what he could observe or the people he could talk with, greatly reduced the amount of potential trafficking that could occur. Yeah.
I mean, maybe. I was looking at a lot. Again, let's like harp on Kamala's. Her shtick is just so slick now. All of a sudden, I come from the middle class. I worked at McDonald's while I was in college. My mother made sure we knew that opportunity is not available to everyone. I mean, it's amazing. As president,
I'm thinking about what is her legislative or legal track record when she was whatever attorney in San Francisco. That's what I want to know about.
That's only you and me. That you gotta stop. You gotta get your head out of the bubble, bro. You're living in a soft, cushy idiom of intellectual masturbatory. The fact that you have the time to read the newspapers years ago. Come on, you privileged first worlder. That you get to know history enough that you know contemporary history. Who has time to know what happened in 2009? That's ridiculous, right? So you're privileged and you should check yourself basically most people aren't
You're
like that.
probably correct.
Most people aren't like that. That's the reality here. And there's going to be, I don't know how many people really care. Now, granted, that doesn't matter because there's also a lot of people like that are just going to feed into an anti-Kamala frenzy, which is good. I mean, if you want to feed into frenzies, this is what happens in elections. One campaign puts out a video of wolves and the other campaign puts out a video of jackals, and they're like, the others, like one puts out a video of snow and the other puts out a video of fire, and it's just like it's always like the other
It's
teams.
great.
Yeah, it's amazing, really. They're just like, the other team's gonna destroy the world. No, the other team's gonna destroy the world. It's like, okay, turd sandwich, douche, but her shtick is slick.
I would love to know how many
Look at
people
this.
would actually wait. How
When
many
the
people?
middle class is strong, America is strong.
Wow.
Come on, that's
Wow.
that's like freaking Lenin. Okay,
Wow.
that's really good. That's really good. That's really good. Be jealous. Be jealous. Sorry, go ahead.
How many people in any country, or especially in Western so-called democracies or republics, would go to vote if the motivation to prevent the other party from gaining power would be removed from the equation?
Say it again. How, if we remove what from the equation?
What percentage, let's say currently you have 100% voters. We know it's not 100%, but we take that as
50
100.
maybe.
Let's
I
say it's
think
50, yeah?
Yeah.
So let's take
close.
those. We have let's just stick with the 50%. And how many percent would really go to vote if the motivation to prevent the other party from gaining power, or the evil party or the evil dictator supposedly from gaining power, were removed from the equation? How many people would still be motivated to go? If it's 50 before of the eligible voter population.
So if you got rid of Trump and Kamala as
20%.
options, you're saying.
No, there would be options, but if the motivation to prevent someone else,
No,
so
but
if
like
there was
basically,
only
if
positive,
you
if there
took
were
out,
only positive motivation to vote because I'm saying, oh, I support the policy of this party so much,
Oh, okay.
I want to have this, and if the motivation to be like, oh, I definitely don't want to have this evil guy or girl in office, if this part of the motivation was removed, how many people would still go up, get
Yeah.
up, or sign the
Okay.
voting release or whatever they do,
Far
or not
fewer.
sign anything as they
Far
do in
fewer.
the US.
Maybe like 1 in 3, maybe 1 in 10, something like that. Because
Yeah,
a lot
so
of
then
people
we'd be
vote.
at like 10%.
A lot of people vote to upset their spouse. in
I
America.
was about to say to upset their family.
Yeah, they're like, or their family in general, right? A lot of people vote to nullify another person's vote, I think. They're reactionarily voting. So, I don't know. That's a big one.
Yes, and the real question is, how deep underground does it really go? That's what I want to know.
Dude.
So,
when we
so
say
we
underground
covered
music in the DC area.
We covered all of that. I guess on the next show, I'll give you the update on whatever happened with the Austrian elections and whatever the narratives are, just as
Yeah.
a fractal representation of maybe,
So
worldwide phenomenon.
I heard that everything's going really well in Austria.
Also, what I have to say is that the recent flooding we had and very, very strange weather patterns also
Yeah.
occurred the last time to that extreme pretty exactly 20 years ago, which suspiciously enough was also right in front of an election. So that's interesting, aside, of course, from the fact that much of Lower Austria was flooded, and now they're discussing rates of, let's say, 10 to maybe 50% of the wealth that was lost. So actually, you could say at least a part of Austria was kind of like great flood resetted, and wealth, at least 50%, or however you would want to calculate it, simply removed. And there was a similar, or not similar, but also flooding damage last year in other counties. And initially, the government, which is also now still the ruling government of the Black Party I mentioned, the Volkspartei, People's Party, Conservative Party, they claimed, oh yes, don't worry, we will gonna supply help to everyone immediately, don't think about it. And 1 year later, they still didn't provide anything. And also they don't want to give people the legal right to actually go to court to get whatever compensation that should be written in law, but they want to like keep it floating in the air. And also another thing I want to show, because it's even more dramatic in a way, because at the very least in Austria, you could say very few people got hurt, very few people died because of it, and it seems like the response was quite effective. Of course, no
But
one in
some really
mainstream.
weird architectural destruction, like not just in Austria, Czech Republic, and also Germany, right? Like
Oh, okay,
Dresden's
okay.
bridge
Yeah,
destroyed.
wait. So
Yeah.
no one, of course, no one really talks about weather manipulation in mainstream. But what I want to bring up also is 2-3 years ago, there was a situation in Germany in Ahrtal. Maybe you can pull this up. Ahrtal. Ahrtal flooding, and that was also in the news. But the little bit of background information that I had gotten, and even reports coming from there even months after the initial flooding, is basically many of the volunteers that showed up initially were kind of turned back by the official authorities. At the same time, the official authorities' response was very slow, ineffective, insufficient, even just in like actually, I guess, just cleaning the street or whatever had to happen. So I had heard that even months after, they still didn't receive proper support from any of the government and attached institutions and groups. And hordes of volunteers basically still were, in a very low-key fashion, helping out their neighbors, extended family, and just extended fellow Germans, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Whereas the government continued to completely look the other way. There was also some particular areas, whereas it could be seen as suspicious, some underground things that were flooded. But aside from that, I mean, all right, if you need do some flooding and historical manipulation or hide whatever military base you had or whatever else you need. But then, even in a westernized country that is so wealthy, to basically leave people in the dirt for months. So both risk their health short term and then long term, not even talking about financial sustainability
also,
or
real estate's
wealth.
like 10x the
Crazy.
value there too. It's like far more valuable too. So this is like more in America. This damage would actually be worth less than it is in Austria and Germany as well.
I mean, that's also possible. So that's another of these examples where I'm like, I'm really sorry, but in most cases, you cannot rely on the government. Like I said here, they didn't even help as first response, which I think in Austria was, from what I heard, handled pretty well. It was also overly dramatized and sensationalized. And again, now they are basically talking about either you have to build higher dams or you have to stop driving your car because, of course, it's the CO2 that caused the flooding.
That's
and
the
nobody talking about, no matter where on the political spectrum, and even in the alternative, almost nobody talking about the even potential for weather manipulation or just to look closer. They're just talking about, the Adria was heating up, and that's all. And that's like the primary school explanation, which should explain how for 4 or 5 weeks you had no humidity at all. It was super hot in Austria, and then suddenly you have like 7 days of incessant rain. Yeah,
it blows my mind, actually. I was just thinking that because I know a lot of Europeans don't understand technology like this, and I get that. Okay, that's reasonable. Maybe you're not thinking about stratospheric aerosol injections on a daily basis, even if American news is talking about it. Which, by the way, if you're a European and American news is talking about something and you don't know it, that's scary. That means you got to catch up. But beyond that,
exactly. I'm about to say, let's make a banner out of the top part and put it everywhere, as seen on, and then it's going to be good and valid.
As seen on CNN, for the love of
ABC.
America, for love of America, NPR, even if you're a communist. But
exactly.
But what scares me is not that. It's the other thing. Like if you can't think about that, okay. But why are you so obsessed with the carbon tax? That's what blows my mind, because carbon tax is a thing that the EU has really pushed. It's a ideological idea that has been accepted, shown in school. Oh God, what's that little sad bread thing? You know what I'm talking about? Burnt
sad bread.
Broad. Is that right? Yeah, dude, this guy.
Oh my god.
Bro.
Oh my god.
Yeah, dude. Why didn't you tell me about this? You know what? Why didn't you?
Because you already knew about it, probably even before I ever knew about it.
Because you had too much shame. Let's just be honest. Because
I think it's only happened one time in my life. Luckily, that somehow I was in the sad situation that I was in front of a TV for lack of better entertainment, or it was some other strange situation where I was like, maybe even deliberately, I was like, I want to see what's going to happen there. And then I realized this is just, I don't even know,
Well,
under set level comedy.
he's a
It's like
piece of he's a
excruciating
piece
to watch,
it's
honestly.
it's a mind control show about a sad
Pretty
piece of
much.
bread that's suffering from chronic depression, and it's destroying children. I'm pretty sure this is like one of I mean, as an American, let me tell you, like this is destroying your children, and you should be really careful about this show. I forgot why I even brought it up because it's that bad. Oh yeah, because when this show comes on and talks about carbon tax credits and why he's so worried about the world, guess what happens to your kids when they grow up? Straight up, that's what he's doing. He's talking about how the world is so terrible, how there's so much trouble in the world.
Oh, so this is the doomer bread.
He's the doomer bread. He's doomer bread, and this is 9 years ago. So just do
Doomer
the
bread
math.
for Generation Alpha and now, or whatever they call it now.
Yeah,
which one is
mainly
the relevant
millennials
one?
too. The millennials too, but yeah, also Alpha has been raised on this. So you've got the Z and Alpha kids are fully.
Yeah, but then again, explain
doomer.
this to me, Andreas. Is the only reason why like we are maybe not so worried about CO2 and more about real environmental damage because of Captain Planet?
Maybe
Because they
but
didn't
also
they didn't have
Scientology
the
is
trope
looking at
online
us.
yet.
I think Scientology helps in general. Like, come on, man! Like, release the Thetans, free Xenu. You know, it's mainly okay. So for me, what did it was water vapor. When I found out that water vapor was was actually 10 times more effective on depleting the ozone layer, that piqued my interest. That we had this really, really tiny effect compared to the ocean, and the ocean was causing most of the ozone depletion, but that also ozone was replenishing in certain places. And then when I found out, okay, really what we
Well,
do.
the one rule of modern climate science, as I could experience firsthand, never mention the potentiality for negative feedback loops. That's not allowed. We can only have runaway temperature in one direction, and then everyone's gonna. You know what I'm thinking now? I think the whole thing with everyone's gonna burn up with climate change is more like an allegory. This is now that I'm thinking of it.
CO2 rainforest. So here's you kind of cut me to the quick there, but because if I was super worried about the environment, I would look at water vapor and say, "Oh my God, the ozone's depleting." But because I know about the system of stratospheric exchange from the troposphere, I know that we're creating more ozone. We're also creating condensation, which protects. These clouds are actually protecting in certain places by obscuring light, and those are creating feedback loops as well, right? And so these are, like you just said, not net necessarily negative. There's also net positive feedback loops. One of those being that CO2 is a major contributor to fauna, right? Fauna. What eats CO2? Plants. How much CO2 is there is actually correlated with how many plants can live. The likelihood of a rainforest. This is a child, just the logical deduction that the likelihood of a rainforest emerging wherever there had been these crazy cities. I mean, this is just intuitive, right? Like anywhere where there's that much CO2, you're eventually going to see more and more plants. And then those plants are going to filtrate the water. And sure, people might not make it through that generation. I mean, that's not something you're thinking about when you're a kid necessarily. Like people will probably have to live in super cities and malls while this is happening. Sure. But nature's really good at fixing itself, right? So the more CO2 that we develop, the more likely that plants are going to eat it. That's basically the logic that incurs. We're headed towards another reality where we consume and we consciously reduce CO2 in a way that actually doesn't benefit plants, right? I mean, we should be looking towards building this world. And I would even say, looking at this Tartaria stuff, how many of the rainforests, and granted, we only have a few left.
Think about it. Stop taking away the breathable air for plants.
Right.
What would that be? That is antibiotic behavior.
I like that. Antibiologic
antibiologic
behavior. But also, doesn't this kind of infer a possibility that this happened before? That places where you go that have the craziest density of fauna, like the rainforest in South America, the rainforest in Malaysia, the rainforest.
Or you
in
have
China.
these huge mountains that, upon close inspection with the hexagonal patterns, may as well be giant mushroom fungi type things. Yes.
I mean, if there were cities there that produced that much CO2, those would have been the places that emerged as rainforests at a certain point. Right. So it's possible that this has already happened before.
So the industrial plants manufactured by the giants and their massive CO2 output was responsible for the giant fungi and potentially trees we now see as mountains.
So fungi are different. So fungi actually breathe oxygen, and they're more similar to us. They exhale carbon monoxide, right?
So now the way you're talking about it, it almost seems as if nature's got a plan and everything has some balancing and buffers and cushions to it. But again, don't tell that to any climate scientist.
They might not like that. I don't know. Basically, though, feedback loops. Like the one thing that they should believe is that input and output creates feedback loops, which is also how synthesizers work and why music is cool. So, oh, and I have a new term: endangered sounds. I was just thinking about this earlier. Can you imagine how hard it is to explain to people the sounds of a fax machine or a dial-up or a touch tone or synthesizers or printers or all these things? They're endangered species. Some of them are extinct. And they had these little whistles and bird sounds that they made, right? The little calls. And they're all endangered sounds. Happy birthday, Raph. Wait, you muted yourself.
Oh, that was the reverse way around. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for watching. Have fun. If you want, enjoy the links. Check out, do your own research, make up your own mind. If you have comments, put them below. Check out the links below. Support Exertus. Thank you, Andreas. Have a good evening, everyone.
Auf Wiedersehen.
This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hello. Welcome to the Exertus. Tune in for another exciting episode of wonder, imagination, and discovery.
Recent Tartarians. Неспонтанно образует всеобщие закономерности, определяющие законы классической физики для нашего
Sometimes I
мира.
look at the moon and just think, your skin's beautiful.
Baby, when I met you, there was peace unknown.
Что касается энергии наномер, то она превышает ядерную в немыслимое число раз. 10 в 74 степени.
That's it. That's it. That's it. With your arms now. That's it. That's it.